Conor McGregor has missed the deadline to enter the USADA testing pool, which means he will likely not compete in 2023 versus Michael Chandler. After all the promotion, the filming of TUF, and with Conor seemingly wanting the fight, this revelation has confused all of us, who now have no idea what is happening with the Irishman's career. This begs the question, what is going on with Conor McGregor, and what's next with his career? Let's find out. This is the Fight Franchise, and what is next for Conor McGregor? Earlier this year, Dana White was over the moon and happy to announce the biggest superstar in MMA history and his pay-per-view megastar and cash cow was returning against one of the most exciting MMA fighters in recent years, Michael Chandler, at the end of 2023. Dana, Conor and Chandler all seemed on the same page to make the fight happen at the end of the year. So much so, both men have now starred in the highly popular and lucrative MMA show The Ultimate Fighter, which has been used to build fighter rivalries where both coaches fight at the end of the show. But now all us fans and Michael Chandler have been thrown for a loop. After the recent news, we have all found out McGregor has failed to make the USADA testing pool deadline. This means he is now not eligible per USADA rules to be able to make the date for the final UFC pay-per-view of the year, which means we will most likely not see McGregor in the UFC octagon in 2023. So what has gone wrong? Why is McGregor not fighting as soon as possible? When in interviews, he has this hunger to get back in the octagon and compete. In a sit-down interview with Megan O'Leary, he has expressed he wants to compete multiple times in 12 months. So why would he delay his inevitable return when he isn't getting any younger? Well, Conor is currently going through some bad press and allegations regarding a sexual assault case, and being the highest profile athlete in the UFC, he could have entered the testing pool secretly, and once the news of his allegation dies down, the UFC and USADA will announce he did in fact enter the testing pool. This could have been done by Dana White, who wants to avoid the bad press and also the media asking him questions at press conferences, but this is a theory I highly doubt. Conor could have purposely missed the USADA testing pool deadline, for the simple reason he wasn't ready to be in the state to beat the drugs test. I'm not for 1 second saying Conor is a cheat, but after suffering a horrific leg break, he has been granted certain treatments which should help him heal faster and better and get him back in the cage sooner, which is a win-win for everyone. However, speculations on what he is taking and how much has been all over the internet, with many people saying he has been on some secret juice for so long that it is rife in his system, which will see him wait a little longer so he can enter back in the USADA testing pool and be a clean fighter once again. Another reason Conor isn't ready to return yet, he has suffered a horrific injury and he may not feel he is fully ready to return. Conor over recent years has become a brand ambassador of Tidal Healing Spray and in multiple interviews has said how much he wanted to up his recovery and take it much more seriously. He now has hundreds of millions of dollars to his name and can afford to hire the most specialist doctors, who may be advising Conor not to return yet as he is not back at his peak physical condition yet. As we have seen on TUF, McGregor receiving cupping therapy and also a massage while speaking to Wonderboy Thompson. This may be a thing he uses to relax and unwind, or he might be using it as therapy to recover, as he still isn't at his peak to start his return yet. These are all reasons on why Conor may not be returning. But when will he be returning? Because after all this, surely he is coming back. Yes, I think Conor will return to the UFC octagon, but I think Dana White has already decided when he will return, and I think I know what is going on. Conor McGregor has not entered the USADA testing pool for what could be many of reasons, even some of the above I have speculated. And you would think the UFC would be mad not having their cash cow compete, as it significantly decreases their pay-per-view sales for the year. But the UFC have something massive on the horizon, UFC 300. That's right, next year a new dawn and chapter of high-level and massive UFC pay-per-views will begin with the UFC 300 era. And what better way to start the era than with Conor McGregor ushering the new wave in? You see, to some fans the numbered pay-per-views are just numbers, but when we look deeper we can get a much better understanding. Of all the UFC pay-per-views to sell over 1 million pay-per-view buys, Conor McGregor fights make up 40% of them, with the Notorious One holding 4 of the top 5 spots, with Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir headlining UFC 100 being 5th all time. Not to mention he is the only fighter in MMA and UFC history to break 2 million pay-per-view buys. But since McGregor done his first ever 1 million plus pay-per-view with Jose Aldo, the only other cards where 1 million plus pay-per-views were sold were Usman vs Masvidal on Fight Island at UFC 251 and the massive UFC 200 card, which Conor McGregor was originally supposed to be on, but was removed as he refused to fly to Vegas and do promotional stuff. Well, 100 pay-per-views later, he can make up for not being on UFC 200. You see, Dana White and the UFC would do anything to hit that 2 million pay-per-view mark again, as it would help elevate the UFC. The 100 cards of UFC 100 and 200 already hit 1 million pay-per-view buys without Conor. Yes, they did have Brock Lesnar being a huge star, selling a bunch more pay-per-views, but imagine with Conor, who just hit around 1.7 million against Poirier without being the spectacle which is UFC 300 as the backdrop. With all that extra buzz surrounding UFC 300, this could get him so close to that 2 million mark once again. Which begs the question, who would be the dance partner across the octagon from him? Conor isn't a man with few options. The biggest name in the sport has a load of names who want to fight him. What about who he was meant to fight at UFC 200? Nate Diaz. If Diaz can beat Jake Paul, that will make Dana a very happy man, as one of his guys finally beats the thorn in his side, which is Jake Paul, who keeps trying to make Dana look bad. And the trilogy is an easy sell. They are one apiece and it's a huge rivalry. Diaz versus McGregor, UFC 300, what a massive pay-per-view. The only issue is we need to rely on Diaz beating Jake Paul, which isn't a given. What about champions? Yes, Conor doesn't deserve a title shot against anyone in the UFC, but as Tony Ferguson said, Dana White privileges, and Conor certainly has that. As you see, currently McGregor is in a unique position, as he has a story with 3 champions at featherweight, lightweight and welterweight. He never lost his featherweight title and could go back and prove he is the best in that division's history, but I doubt he will be able to make the weight though. Lightweight he can go to claim back the belt he once held, and if it is against Islam Makhachev, that is a mega fight. Yes, it's not the rematch against Khabib, but it damn sure is very close to bringing that rivalry back to light, which should be music to Dana's ears, as the Khabib rivalry sold 2.4 million pay-per-views. Yes, it isn't Khabib, but McGregor versus Islam, with the story and the history. At UFC 300, this could sell 2 million pay-per-views, which is what Dana is looking for. Lastly, there is the welterweight champ, and you're probably thinking, what rivalry or connection does Conor have with them? Conor would have the opportunity to create history and become the first triple-weight world champion, and what better way and place to sell it than UFC 300? There is also plenty of other fights. If Dustin Poirier becomes the BMF champ, Poirier versus McGregor 4, UFC 300 for the BMF championship could be a huge event. But there is one fight, and I don't think it will happen as both guys respect each other, and I don't think there is a huge rivalry there. But both guys' timing seems to be lining up, and that is Conor versus Paddy the Baddy. Yes. Before you kill me in the comments and say Paddy can't beat Jared Gordon, what makes you think he can beat Conor, etc. I'm not talking what makes sense, I'm talking what sells, and this would be a mega fight. Conor versus Paddy, UFC 300 would be huge, and Paddy recovering from an injury as well lines up perfectly with Conor. I'm not saying this will happen, but if you made a list of dream fights Dana and the UFC matchmakers want to headline UFC 300, this is easily one of the top 5, and if Paddy somehow was to win, the UFC would be able to create a new megastar. If I had to guess what's the next move in Conor McGregor's career, honestly I haven't got a clue, as it's so all over the place right now. But to me it all points to headlining UFC 300. The opponent though, who knows? It could still be Michael Chandler, but he is getting restless and wanting the fight, and waiting till May next year when UFC 300 will possibly be is a long time out of the octagon for him, which is why I think Chandler takes a fight before then. As for Conor, it could be Poirier, Diaz, Gaethje, Volkanovski, Makhachev, the list is endless. But as for what's next for Conor McGregor, it looks like a one-way ticket to UFC 300. Did you enjoy the video? Let us know down in the comments below. What do you think is next for Conor McGregor's career? And when do you expect him to return? Put that down in the comments below. And who do you think will headline UFC 300? Put that down in the comments below also. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more fight content coming soon regarding MMA and boxing. We hope you enjoyed the video and we'll catch you in the next one.